We're going to move from fish to finance, and I now invite to the stage Nicola Anderson from FinTech Cluster Scotland. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And as I speak for longer, you may pick up that tone of Northern Irish in my accent. So it's an absolute pleasure to be home. But I have lived away for a long time, and I'm really glad to bring this message back. So I'm Nicola Anderson, and I'm the Chief Exec at FinTech Scotland. And we're here to drive a FinTech cluster that will enable a world of innovation, collaboration, and inclusion through finance. That's our mission, and that's what we're on a goal to do. We've been developing the FinTech Scotland cluster since 2018, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. So I'm going to take you on that journey. We're still young, we're still relatively new, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today learning from so many other brilliantly established clusters. And I suppose we're also thinking about cluster innovation or cluster development in a service industry, which is unique and a little bit different. So any hints or tips as we think about the service economy and the digital economy as we go forward would be much welcome. So why are we looking at FinTech innovation in Scotland? So I am told, I was not there, but I am told that Scotland has a long history of innovation in financial services, dating all the way back to the 1600s. Scotland was responsible for the banknotes that we know and understand and feel, believe it or not. They were also responsible for the overdraft, which many of us will be much more familiar with. And they've also been responsible for the development of the investment landscape, the investment vehicles and those types of products that we know. Financial services is a really important part of Scotland's economy. It contributes to the UK economy about £14.3 billion on an annual basis. It employs about 6% of the Scottish workforce, and it is a really significant part of our future. And as we think about the current way financial services works, there is in no doubt it will shift and change as technology evolves. And so in 2017, the leaders in Scotland in the financial services sector, in the Scottish enterprise and Scottish government, and in our university sector came together to say, we need a strategic leadership organisation that could sit at the intersection of public, academia and industry to think about how we are going to craft a strategy to be leaders in FinTech innovation. And I was privileged to join FinTech Scotland as it was born in the beginning of 2018, at the tail end of 2018. And my personal story is I joined that organisation on secondment from the Financial Conduct Authority, the UK regulator in financial services. So I'm not, like Alexander, I'm not a cluster leader either, although I am now. And I firmly believe that as we think about curious minds, as we think about leadership and we think about connectivity, we absolutely can embrace this journey. It's just been an absolute pleasure of my current career to be involved in this opportunity, and I'm really delighted to talk to you a little bit about it and indeed invite you to participate and collaborate. And I know we're already doing that with Northern Ireland. I'm determined we'll do more. We also think about the importance of benchmarking ourselves against cluster organisations, and you'll see loudly and proudly we demonstrate the European Secretariat of Cluster Analysis silver label there. We've put ourselves through that process. It was important that we understood what's the contributions or the attributes of a really strong cluster. And so we're leaning and learning from that capability and indeed that experience across Europe as we develop our opportunity. And Scotland, we've been recognised as a growing cluster of innovation in a number of different fields, and in particular with in the UK as it did a review of FinTech. Scotland has been recognised as the second largest cluster outside of London for FinTech innovation, and it's connected, of course, to our history in financial services. So what is the FinTech Scotland cluster? What does it look like then? So hopefully this slide brings to life what it is. So we think about the FinTech Scotland cluster in a number of different ways. We think about our community of fintech businesses, our entrepreneurs who are changing the way finance will work. We think about our incumbent sector and the need for them to embrace and adopt technology as we think about the future of finance and the importance that that has to our overall economy. We think about the business partners that also need to be involved, the professional services alongside the financial services. And we also think about our academic contribution and our universities and our skills and talent. And then more broadly, we think about the other really important stakeholders who are involved and need to be involved. Our community groups, our consumers, our investors, our international relationships, really important as we think about the broader development of the cluster. So we are 6 years old on our journey. In 2018, when FinTech Scotland first established and knew it wanted to be something, there were 26 FinTech entrepreneurs in that community of businesses that I just talked about. As I stand here today, there are closer to 240 in that community of businesses. And that ranges from startup to scale up to growth and indeed 1 or 2 unicorns. And over the last 6 years, we've seen about £1.8 billion invested in that community of fintech businesses in Scotland. Particularly those that are scale up and growing are securing future investment in a really tricky landscape at the moment. You'll see as well, I've talked to the importance of we talk about these, the financial services sector being the strategic partners. The majority of fintech businesses that we know in the UK and indeed in Scotland are developing B2B propositions. So as we think about our service economy and how that service economy will unfold, the importance of our current financial services sector is really important. And these organisations are starting to help that sector change and shift. And so working with those large financial institutions is vital as we think about the future of our fintech cluster. There were 5 in 2018 who got involved. There are around 34 today. And the story goes on. So this brings to life a little bit about how we think about the cluster. And we think about it from an innovation perspective, we think about it from a collaboration perspective, and we think about it from an inclusion point of view. So the fintechs that are involved in the community are driving the future of technology adaptation. We have depth of expertise in AI, we have depth of expertise in growing in distributed ledger technology and in quantum. But the important thing is that we think about the application of that technology into the future of the financial services sector. And so these businesses are helping us change the future of banking, they're helping us change the future of capital markets, they're helping us change and address issues that we know we need collaboration on, such as financial crime, financial inclusion, and many other issues. And so it's that type of application and adoption of technology that we really focus on as we think about the future of our fintech cluster. And this just brings to life some of these businesses in this community that are indeed driving this change. Modular is a brilliant example, and soon to be a unicorn in my own opinion. They are changing the future of payments. How we currently think about the future of paying for something will shift dramatically. You're probably using tap, perhaps a little bit less than cash at the moment. You will soon not be using plastic at all. That is the way things are going. You will soon be using much more of your consumables and wearables, and also on a bank-to-bank basis, you will not need your credit or debit card. And I would anticipate that's going to be in the next 10 years, maybe sooner. So these types of organizations are shifting the way our financial services works. But that shift needs a really strategic, coordinated strategy. We need to bring our consumers and our citizens as much as our businesses along that journey as we think about the adoption and the opportunity that fintech presents. So as we thought about that and thinking about what does our strategy need to look like at FinTech Scotland, knowing the kind of key attributes of a positive fintech cluster. Thank you. 5 minutes. I'll keep to that time. We developed a FinTech research and innovation roadmap, and we're working our strategy to that. This was a piece of work that we invited collaboration and input on right across the economy in Scotland and indeed the UK. Our financial services sectors contributed, our innovators and universities contributed, our regulators and indeed our public sectors contributed, and importantly, our consumer groups contributed. And we heard loud and clear that there were 4 key priorities for an opportunity if we were really to think about the future of finance. Because the question we asked those organisations is, what should the future of finance look like? And it was in that question that we got the real insights. And that is driving the activities and the services that we are now convening as we think about FinTech Scotland. So this is a busy slide, I appreciate that. One of the points of difference that I will mention as we think about FinTech Scotland is we did do an analysis of what's already happening across Scotland as we thought about what in addition do we need to do. So that's a really important part of how we work, is we think about what's the additionality, what's not there already that we can't collaborate with, as we then think about what in addition we need to do to drive this opportunity. And so at the moment, we are working collaboratively on a number of different initiatives, but we have recognised that there is a need for interventions in a number of others. So our innovation approach and our drive to delivering more innovation is focused on entrepreneurship. It's focused on R&D that can be applied. So we work really closely with our universities as we think about the adoption and the output of R&D. It's focused on the skills and talent for the future, and it's focused really importantly on knowledge exchange. And so anything that we do and the convening power that we have and that we are generally generating is focused on that delivery framework that helps us drive activity. And it's through that approach that we get the engagement and the opportunity that we're presenting. So we are focused on innovation in 4 key themes, and I want to bring it to life and how that works in practice on 1. Now, I did mention that I'm an ex-regulator. You can take the girl out of the regulator. Perhaps you can't take the regulator out of the girl, it's fair to say. But financial innovation regulation was one of the themes that came up in our industry research. As we think about the service economy, and indeed in many of our service economies, whether that's health, whether that's financial services, whether that's energy, they are heavily regulated industries. We need to bring our regulators into the fold as we think about the future of that opportunity. The UK, and personally I'm biased, of course, I'm an ex-FCA lady, but I think the Financial Conduct Authority does a fairly good job in helping us to innovate. It asks the questions, it helps us think about that. What there isn't, though, is an independent environment that allows industry and regulator to come together more or less as peers, alongside our universities, to really think about the future. Nobody's driving the agenda except the collaboration. Nobody's got an individual interest in driving something different. And so the Financial Regulation Innovation Lab was an intervention that we have established in Scotland in the collaboration with the University of Glasgow and the University of Strathclyde. It brings together an industry on a collaborative basis to drive forward change as we think about the future of finance. We are really proud, actually, that we are in year 2, about 18 months on, and the results that we're seeing through this collaboration are quite impressive. We've supported over 40 FinTech businesses through this programme. As we've been inviting businesses to get involved, we've had over 124 applications worldwide to those innovations. Northern Ireland businesses are involved and indeed thriving through this programme. I can see Petilia in the audience, which is fantastic. These businesses are now employing really skilled workforce. And what we're seeing through the programme already is that we have achieved around 100 high quality, high growth jobs. And those jobs are paying around £63,000 a year. It's a fairly substantial salary. So that really benefits our economy, all told, in many different ways. And that's just from the first 18 months. We're anticipating more. What happens in this program is we get really deep industry insights. We offer those problem statements to our innovators, and it gets them much more connected to the needs. It also brings our regulators much closer to the actual practice, and indeed they then can evolve policy. So it's a really interesting example of how a cluster organisation can convene and drive change on a cross-sectoral basis with regulators, industry, and indeed innovators heavily involved. We're really proud of what we're doing there, and there will be more to come on that. Climate finance is another key topic for us as we think about the future and the opportunity there. And I do want to bring this out because it's an important part of our DNA, is that we are collaborating not just within the finance sector, but we're looking more broadly at other clusters in Scotland. Because to that point that I mentioned earlier, we're here to be added, to amplify, to collaborate, and where there's something not happening, we will be additional. We're working with Space Scotland on a really interesting opportunity where significant innovation in space data will have an opportunity and an application in financial services. I started to talk about that about 2 years ago, and nobody believed me. Absolutely nobody believed me. I had a really, really strong message to deliver in the financial services industry, I should say. Actually, in the Scottish Enterprise team, they got it. They were on board, really, really, really pushing the opportunity. But in the financial services sector, there were very few people that could join the dots, that could connect the opportunity. Move on 2 years later, actually, in our 240 fintech community, but strong community, there are 13 space tech businesses. They've already identified pathways into the financial services sector. And so as a cluster organisation, as a cluster leader, it was vital that we led the charge on that, and really important that we do so. The other way that we convene change and drive opportunity is we think about the needs of the incumbent sector. And so we will work with them on a number of different programmes. The majority of those businesses, as I said before, are driving B2B propositions. And so to the points that some of the cluster leaders made earlier on, it's really important that we know and understand the attributes of that community. We spend as much time with them as we do with the financial services sector. So I have a team of 9 across the FinTech Scotland Cluster Management Organisation, and at least 3 of those are focused all the time on the fintech community. That depth of engagement, that depth of understanding, and driving the activities and the skills that are needed to support them to grow. We focus on 3 key things for that community group. They're interested in investment, of course. They're interested in skills and the talent agenda. But more importantly, they're interested in commercial pathways and route to market. And so we equally then, another 2 or 3 of us will spend as much time with the financial services sector, because that is the connecting point, and that's important for Scotland's economy. There's a number of different innovation programmes unfolding now, and that's at the encouragement of our intervention with those large organisations. And what we're seeing, again, is commercial opportunity for those businesses. So that's really driving our capability. So I'll leave you, I think my time is nearly up, but I'll leave you with that focus that we have as we think about the broader connecting opportunity on a cross-cluster basis. So we're really privileged, actually, in Scotland. We're one of those clusters that has been able to demonstrate value, and we get significant support from Scottish Enterprise and the industry and the academic community in helping to drive that strategy. What's important for us as we think about our skills and experience as a leadership team is that we know and understand the financial services sector, but we are curious enough about the other opportunities that innovation will present. And so I've brought to life the space example. We will also be doing some more work shortly with the health sector. Again, we think technology has an opportunity more broadly in in connecting some of those sectors. We will learn better if we're collaborating. And we'll also be doing some more work in the near term in the built environment sector. So that why I enjoy my work so much is that I get to be curious about all of that. And indeed, then we get to think about what are the interventions and initiatives that we will do to drive economic contribution for the Scottish economy, and indeed make sure that we are driving inclusion and collaboration along the way. Thank you. Thank you very much.